you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. The Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City proceedings will begin. The board is now in session. If you're in possession of any type of electronic device, please place said device on the off or silent mode during proceedings. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, there being no preliminary matters on the AM docket, I'll call the very first case, Song On Park and Samuel Hunt, PC1 Inc., trading as East Curly Liquors, 2921 East Monument Street. This is a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license, and application to transfer ownership. Please come forward. East Monument Street.
Doesn't appear that anyone's present. Do you want to just go to the second one and then see if they show up?
Number 2 on the AM docket, Jin Soo Pang and Jason Kim, Fulton Discount Liquors, Inc., trading as Fulton Liquors, 551 North Fulton Avenue. This is a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license, and application to transfer ownership. Please come forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have not been here before, we are on the record and we're televised. So when you come forward, if you're going to give any testimony, you'll need to be sworn. And when you speak, you'll need to lean into these microphones, and after you state your name, spell it for our court reporter. Counsel?
Abraham Hurdle on behalf of Jin Soo Pang and Jason Kim, Fulton Discount Liquors, Inc., trading as Fulton Liquors at 551 North Fulton Avenue.
Before you begin, thank you. Can I ask these folks to raise their right hands, please?
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can put your hands down. Mr. Hurdle?
This is an in-location transfer of an A license, a liquor store license. It is my understanding that Mr. Pang, who sometimes goes by Jim or Jimmy, has reached out to the local community association, and they've indicated that there are no objections. I think there's a plan to renovate the store, kind of clean it up a little bit. I think that it was previously kind of in a rough shape, and they're just kind of a little polish, you know, kind of clean up the trim, put some paint on it, make it less of an eyesore, that sort of thing. I think it used to be boarded up, and they've already taken down the boarded windows, things of that nature, so that it's just a better establishment. Mr. Pang has significant experience in the industry, but I'll let him testify to that.
Okay, and they are aware that this is one of the licenses that's subject to the new zoning regulation that will sunset?
There is a zoning regulation. I question the validity of that regulation.
They're aware of it, though.
They have been informed of it. The zoning individuals did indicate that this is one of the licenses in question.
And if the license is transferred to them, they're going to be receiving formal notice from the Department of Housing and Community Development about that.
They actually spoke to somebody in the hallway.
Okay. You may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Pang, can you please step up? Mr. Pang, you have experience in the liquor industry, is that correct?
Yes,
How many years of experience do you have?
about 20 years.
And you're aware of how a liquor store operates in terms of buying from wholesalers exclusively
Yes,
and carding underage or carding all individuals?
yes,
And you're going to have either you or Mr. Kim is going to be at the location all the time, is that correct? I did notice that this ownership breakdown indicates that it's going to be you as 100%, Mr. Kim is 0.
yes.
Does the application actually indicate 99 and 1%? Is that my understanding?
I think it's 100% and 0% on him. Final.
Let me just bring your attention to the application. It looks here as if it's 99 and 1. Is that accurate?
I think, yeah, that's the one I correct, yes.
Sorry. I just wanted to correct that because I was myself confused. And you're both going to take the alcohol awareness certification?
Yes,
I have no further questions at this time. from the
And
board.
sir, you say you've been in this industry for 20 years. Where have you worked?
first one I work at the corner of 25th and Charles. There was a new Nodaji restaurant. I took off from Love Restaurant, and I almost developed that area ever since I went there. The Safeway came out, and the CVS, 25th and Charles. It just become bright after I opened my restaurant up 1990. And I want to do this corner, same thing. I just
Okay.
right in up the corner.
And this is going to be a packaged goods store. It'll be the first time that you've done that?
I do have some sort of like employment before. I help my Korean peoples out where they have a package good. They ask me to come translate and all this stuff. I went there to advise them. I do have some experience on this.
Okay. How about Mr. Kim? Does he have experience in this industry?
Yes, he used to work for his parent who owns a liquor store in the city,
In Baltimore?
in Baltimore City, yes, sir.
And do you know where?
He live in somewhere in the East Monument Street, you know.
Does he speak English?
He's born here.
Okay. So you're speaking for him, though.
Not, he's
The
a
seller,
seller.
I
Oh,
apologize.
okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Mr. Kim, I think,
He's my nephew.
Mr. Peng, he couldn't be here today because he had
Okay.
something,
Yes.
unfortunately, that came up last minute, correct?
I apologize. Okay. Do the commissioners have questions?
If I could, so you're Mr. Ping?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Ping, a couple questions, if I could. In any of the other establishments you've worked in or operated, have there been any violations, any issues?
No, none at all.
None whatsoever. And I understand, based on our information, that you live in Stevensville.
Yes.
And Stevensville, if I'm not mistaken, is on the eastern shore?
Across the street from the Bay Bridge is Queen Anne's County.
Okay, right, correct. And so, do you have any issues with the fact that you're going to be approximately 45 minutes at least to an hour away from a liquor store that you'll have 100% interest in?
I don't think so. We all Koreans work hard. We get up 4 o'clock in the morning till work 12 midnight, so.
I appreciate
Doesn't
that.
matter. No, sir.
But you understand, I mean, that's been a concern I know this commission has raised, that when new purchasers come in, that they are somewhat close to the establishment should anything happen. So then my next question is, how many employees will you have? Will they be trained? Will they have, if you're not there, in the event?
I will have a 2 employee and 1 lady from neighborhood, and I'll hire like 3 employees from the neighborhood, get the establishment going.
So you're confident that living on the eastern shore, you'll be able to?
Matter of fact, I'm buying a house at Baltimore County at this minute, like 20 minutes away. That's why, yes, sir.
Good information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing further.
Just one question and a comment. When you're not there, will there be someone there who understands the language?
Yes, I have a manager, he speaks fluent English, and he'll be there all the time, because I just don't want to let my establishment open, have a customer have a hard time to communicate. I don't want to do that. Just want,
And the comment is, I know that liquor store. It needs a lot of sprucing up. So
Oh, it is, it is.
So,
I just open it up, but just, the location is really, really good, sir.
just make sure that the commitment you're making to the community, you keep it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Promise.
Okay. And you said that they had met with representatives from the community. Is there a particular organization?
My understanding is he met with one of the neighbors, I think, who works with one of the community organizations. I don't believe that there was any community meeting that they necessarily went to.
What's the name of the organization?
I believe there was, it was set up by Detective Joe. He personally went there, met the community leader. He said he owns the funeral home in that area. He says they're okay with me, and as long as I attend their first meeting at 21st December, which I have fully committed to go there to help them out.
Okay.
Chairman, the association will be Harlem Park. Mr. Albert Wiley is the president.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? All right. On the basis then of the information contained in the application for the transfer, the proffers from council, and the testimony we've received this morning, I'd vote to approve the transfer.
I also vote to approve.
I concur.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. May we be excused?
You may.
Just no exhibits for the record. Mr. Hurdle.
Do you want to recall the first case then, Mr. Page?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Sung Park and Samuel Hunt, PC1 Inc., trading as East Curly Liquors, 2921 East Monument Street. This is a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license, an application to transfer ownership. Please come forward.
Good morning. Would everyone who's going to testify in this case please raise your right hand? Right hand.
I'm sorry.
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, when you speak, please identify yourself in the microphone and spell your name, okay? Are you representing them?
No, I'm here as a translator.
Okay, do you want to be sworn? Bryson?
What's your name?
Julian, Julian. last name is Min, M-I-N.
It's Korean.
Yes, Korean.
Do you swear or affirm to translate between English and Korean to English to the best of your ability?
I do, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is an application to transfer ownership, and this is also a Class A license, which would be subject to the new Baltimore zoning law, which would went into effect this past June, and which is going to have that sunset provision in it so that it won't be good. What is the final date on that, Mr. Page?
It's 2019.
June 2019, Mr. Chairman.
And are you all aware of that?
Yes.
And you are Ms. Park?
Yes.
Okay. And is Mr. Hunt here? Okay, so you're both aware of that. So if this is transferred to you, you're going to receive formal notice from the Department of Housing and Community Development about that. Okay, so tell us what your background is. Have you got experience in this industry?
My family has owned liquor store and restaurant for a long time in Baltimore City. And also I have many experience for the liquor and restaurant also.
And can you tell us the name of the place that your family has run?
Family restaurant is Brown Rice, and also the liquor store is Lexi and Eric 500. Liquor store.
I failed to ask you this when you came up, Ms. Park, and I apologize, but have you ever been represented by the firm of Whiteford, Taylor and Preston,
What's it?
a law firm?
프레스티아는 변호사가 있잖아요. 한번 변호해 준 적 있어요?
What kind of?
I'm asking because we have a long conflict system, and your name came up on it, but it could be someone else, so that's why I asked whether it was you.
그 변호사. 예. 모르시죠?
Okay, thank you. So you don't have any objection to me hearing your case?
그러니까 이분이 있잖아요. 체험했는데 여기서 이 케이스를 맡으신다는데 괜찮냐고.
Oh, of course.
Okay, all right. So your family's run Brown Rice and also worked in a liquor store.
Lexi liquor store and Eric 500.
Okay. And who's going to work in the East Curly Liquors? You as well. And Mr. Hunt, what's your background?
Construction and management.
Can you step up to the microphone, please?
Sorry, construction and management.
Okay, so have you ever worked in the alcohol business before?
About 2 years.
Where did you work?
Ocean City. I was a manager, I guess you would say, slash bartender.
Okay.
So it was like an In-N-Out store, one of those little small convenience stores around Ocean City.
Have you received the alcohol awareness training?
No.
Have you, ma'am?
Long time ago.
Okay. But are you prepared to receive it again now? Okay. And are you fully aware of our rules and regulations with respect to where you purchase the alcohol from wholesalers and from whom you cannot purchase it? Retail people?
누구한테 가게, 누구한테 술 사고 그런 거 다 아시는 거예요?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. And you're going to be very careful about serving underage individuals?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is this Monument Street location, is there a community organization there that is interested? Yes, ma'am, you are.
Lorraine Diggs.
You were sworn, right, Ms. Diggs?
Yes.
And what's your organization?
I'm a nonprofit organization. We're a community without a voice. I've been in my community for 40 years.
Okay. Sounds like you do have a voice to me. But are you in support of this transfer?
Yes.
And you've met with Ms. Park and Mr. Hunt? And you think that they're going to be an asset to your community?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Just that I have been in the community for 40 years, and they have just done so much for the community so far that I have seen, and I wouldn't just let anybody come in our community because, like I said, we are highly respected of what company comes in our community. If you're not going to make a difference in our community, we don't need no parts of it, but I know they're going to make a difference in our community.
Okay. And did you have anything to add, sir?
Simply that.
And can you identify yourself for the record?
My name is Kelly Cross, president of the Old Goucher Community Association. This is not my neighborhood, but we have been working with a number of stores around Baltimore City. Brought Councilwoman Sneed through to this store just a few months ago, and have been working with her other businesses in the neighborhood and on East Monument Street, and this is one of those businesses that we continue to work with. My understanding is that the previous owners have had some concern about Baltimore City, have decided that they want to transfer this license to owners who are going to be more present and in the neighborhood. And I know the new applicant very well, and I think she'd be a great owner, great manager of the restaurant.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
No question.
Okay. Anything further? All right, then on the basis of the materials contained in the application and the testimony that we've received this morning, as well as the support that has been expressed here by the community leaders, I would vote to approve the transfer.
I concur.
I concur as well, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, just two
Sure.
comments. Thank you for investing and purchasing this. I note in our record that this was a license that was disturbed because of what happened in 2015, and so I very much appreciate the fact that you're purchasing this. And then, from a personal note, my condolences, Detective Min, for your partner.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, folks, and good luck.
Very much.
Mr. Hunt?
Tom?
No exhibits for the record.
Vivian Harris, Sang-Hoon Lee, and Jenny Jen Lee, JAS Enterprise, Inc., trading as Gruner's Market, 101-03 North Monastery Avenue. This is a Class A beer, wine, and liquor license, an application to transfer ownership. Please come forward.
Counsel?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Jay Yu, representing the applicant, the corporation, which is JAS Enterprise, Inc., and the applicant, Ms. Vivian Harris, Ms. Jenny Lee, and Mr. Sang Lee.
May I ask you to raise your right hands, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And which one of you is Ms. Lee? Ms. Lee, your name also showed up on my conflict sheet. Have you ever been represented by my law firm, Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston? Yes. Okay, do you have any objection to me hearing this case this morning? Okay, thank you. Mr. Yu, you want to tell us what's going on here?
Yes, Mr. Lee is purchasing this liquor establishment from his uncle, who bought from his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually purchasing back.
Coming back.
It's coming back to yes, coming back to him. So Mr. Lee has, and his parents were in the neighborhood for quite some time, and Miss Vivian Harris, who's living right around the corner from the location, is currently a licensee, and she agreed to be a resident agent licensee for Mr. Lee as well. Miss Vivian Harris will be 1% interest holder, and the wife, Miss Jenny Lee, will be the 49% interest holder, and Mr. Lee will have 50%. He'll be the president. Miss Lee will be the secretary and the treasurer, and Miss Vivian Harris will be the assistant secretary. Miss Vivian Lee obviously was pre-qualified. She's current licensee and a resident agent licensee. She has been in the neighborhood for 20 years and been a property owner for past 17 years. She's well qualified. She has no criminal conviction whatsoever, clean record. She's coming to the store all the time. She's in the neighborhood. She's right around the corner. So she clearly understands the rules and regulations, and she does understand that she'll have to. One of her duties as a resident agent licensee is to monitor and check on the other licensees and the operation of the business. Mr. Lee, he's certified, and he does have experience in alcohol business. Obviously, through his parents, when they were owning the store, he was there to help them. And also, he has experience from Baltimore County when their parents had a liquor store in Baltimore County. And also, Ms. Lee and Mr. Lee had a chicken restaurant in Baltimore County, I believe. Yes, they had that for a few years, and then they sold that business, and they're coming back to purchase their old parents old business. Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee and Ms. Harris all fully understand that they are going to check ID for anybody who looks under 40. That they have to purchase from the state authorized distributors. They have to maintain records of purchases, invoices, organize them, have it ready for the inspector to inspect it, maintain the employee records. And Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee are person of good moral characters. With that, I submit.
But this is a grocery store, right?
It's a grocery and liquor store.
So, okay, so there are shelves with alcohol, and people can come in and purchase that as well as everything. Okay. Do the commissioners have questions?
Yes. What's the name of the neighborhood association?
Neighborhood.
Neighborhood Association?
Yes.
St. Joseph? It's really not an association. We do have neighborhood meetings, but that's about it. But it's in the St. Joseph area.
Like Mount St. Joseph High School?
No, not Mount St. Joseph, just St. Joseph.
Oh,
The church, yes, right.
My reason for asking that question, just want to make sure that you are aware of the neighborhood association. I want you to develop a relationship with them.
I'll make sure they do. I'm aware of it. I do participate in the meetings and stuff, so dues are paid. So I take care of the neighborhood, I do.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Anything further? Do you have anything further, Mr. Yu?
No, there are.
All right, well, on the basis then of the materials that are contained in the application, the proffers from council and the testimony we've received this morning, and with your commitment that you're going to address any concerns that the neighborhood association has, I would vote to approve the transfer.
I agree.
I concur. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No exhibits for the record.
Adam Gaylor and Angelo Savage, Bottoms Up Gentlemen's Club, LLC, trading as Bottoms Up Gentlemen's Club, 415 East Baltimore Street. This is a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, and Class AE adult entertainment license. An application to transfer ownership with continuation of live entertainment. Please come forward.
For the record, Melvin J. Kanensky, 19 East Fayette Street, representing the applicants.
Good morning. Gentlemen, would you raise your right hands, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, Mr.
It's a
Kadensky.
transfer of an existing location on Baltimore Street, was known as the Club Diamond for a long period of years, been there for a long time. In this case, Mr. Kaler has prior experience. He had worked at a club in Ohio. He's going to be in the process of moving here to
Excuse me,
Baltimore.
which gentleman is Mr. Kaler? You are, okay.
And the case, both Mr. Kaler and Mr. Savage are former service people, having one being in the Marine Corps, one in the Army. It was our Army and our Marine Corps, because sometimes nowadays you can't be too careful when you ask people. They've had a prior experience, both of them. Mr. Savage has had alcohol awareness. I'll make that my exhibit 1. Also, along with that, they are familiarizing themselves with the rules and regulations. I had given them both sets of the alcohol beverage rules and regulations, also the adult entertainment. They have a process of a form where they're going to have the people identified, names, addresses. They'll have a code regarding the adult entertainment so they don't transgress the rules, and make sure the ladies that are working there go ahead and observe them. The place is I've got some extra ones here.
That's all right. I think we've seen them before, so.
It's a smaller one of the places that holds probably 52, 54 people, so it's not a very large place. They provided for security. They're going to have their own security, and they've contracted with a Brooks Security Consultant Group, and I'll give this as an exhibit. in those establishments, they can, make sure they have security people coming in. Everybody has to be over the age of 21 to be in the place. They've got their ID books that they've been checking into to make sure everybody's there, and make sure all their employees are over 18 years of age. They're going to have basically the same hours of operation, open in the afternoon to the evenings. And they'll be in the mix with the other ones. There's 2 or 3 other places real close to them.
Was this club closed for some period of time?
Mike Bunger that operated, he closed it, I think, in February of last year.
Of this year or 16?
17,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Interestingly enough, he's working for the Pennsylvania Alcohol Beverage Authority over there. I don't know what he's doing, but he thought he was going to get out of the business. Now he's back in the check-in.
Mr. Kadensky, would that be a promotion or demotion for him?
He called me today and told me he's getting paid $12.70 an hour. So it's probably a promotion when he was getting paid here.
Okay, so he closed it in February. When has
He
it?
had a hardship extension.
Right.
Yeah, and then,
Is it reopened now?
no, we're waiting for the board to approve.
Okay. And who's going to manage this? Which one of you or both of you? Mr. Kaler, you are?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you work in a place like this in Ohio?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for how long?
A year and a half.
Okay. Did you run into any problems with their liquor
sir.
licensing people?
Yes, sir.
This place
And
had.
I also have my alcohol awareness too, and we have 7 employees, and all 7 have already been trained with the alcohol awareness.
Okay, because this place did have some problems back in 2015, so you need to be vigilant. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do the commissioners have questions?
Yes, Mr. Savage, what is your involvement in the operation?
I'm sorry, that's loud. I worked at one of the clubs several years ago doing security, and now I also do maintenance, general maintenance for a lot of the other properties that are down there. So even though I don't work at a club right now, I'm still down there doing maintenance on the buildings, so that's really my connection. I have a regular job up in Charles Village where I live. So I'm pretty close by in case there's any kind of emergency or anything. I can get down here pretty quick. But it's been a few years since I have worked down there. But like I say, I do maintenance on the other buildings, so that's kind of my connection right now.
Anything?
Will there be a basement use?
Well, it is a downstairs.
There's a club above it.
Will the basement be used for any activities from either license?
It's actually, the location is in the basement. There's another establishment above them.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Fair enough.
It's
Okay.
one of the more unusual places down there. I'm sure I don't want to bore you with the history of
Please don't.
the Clover.
I'll hear about, okay, nothing further.
Blaze
It will be
Stone.
in your memoirs, right?
Maybe.
Okay. Just want to caution you, gentlemen, I mean, these establishments are susceptible to lots of different types of violations, so you're going to have to be very careful with your employees and with the people who come through there. All right, on the basis then of the materials contained in the application, the proffers from council, and the testimony received this morning, I'd vote to approve the transfer of the liquor and adult entertainment licenses.
I concur.
I too concur with the approval of both the liquor license and the adult entertainment license. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Call exhibits for the record. Exhibit number 1, alcohol awareness certification for Angelo Savage. Exhibit number 2, certification of the Brooks Security Group.
Are we going out of order for this?
Yeah, let's take the last one.
Okay, we're going to call case number 6, Rupek Karki and Lemmy Brady Jr., Ava Group LLC, trading as Pratt Liquor Bar, 1812 West Pratt Street. This is a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, and application to transfer ownership. Please come forward.
For the record, Melvin J. Kanensky representing the applicant. In this case, the city resident isn't here because he has an autistic child, and they had a little problem with him today, so, not problem, incident, so he won't be here. But Mr. Karki is the purchaser, and he's going to be the owner-operator.
Okay, good morning. Mr. Karki, please raise your right hand.
We swear or affirm the testimony which you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the
So
This
is he
is an-
purchasing the building as well as the license?
Yeah, I want to go through that. He's, actually, the building is on the corner there, and it has like 6 apartments with it. And he was looking for a business where he could go ahead and operate. He's going to eventually move here to Baltimore, so it has the bar on the first floor and 6 apartments. On that location, he has going to keep the same employees that are there, and the people who are the licensees are going to stay on with him to familiarize himself with the people in the neighborhood and so forth. He has taken the alcohol awareness course, and I'll give you that as an exhibit.
Thank you. Be received.
We keep the same hours, the same employees. It's just going to, freshen the place up a little bit. The place has been there a long time. This particular license was only transferred there probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
2013, I think.
Yeah, prior to that, the license years ago was held by Jimmy and Annie Walls, and they had it for a long time. Mr. Walls passed away and then transferred it, and he was known back in those days as a hammer. He was the kind of guy that you wouldn't want to fool around with. But of course, his health took him away. So Mr. Karki will operate the place. He's familiarizing himself with the neighborhood, and he's getting an SBA loan that's pending the approval of about $350,000 in the case. It's already been pre-approved.
Okay, and where do you live now?
I live in Baltimore County.
Okay. But you're moving?
Yeah, but in the future, I have to move. I'm planning to.
You gotta
move
speak
to
up.
the ci- yeah, I'm planning to move in the city too.
Okay. And maybe you said this, but do you have experience in the liquor business?
Not on the liquor business. My cousin brother, he owned a Subway restaurant, and I operated that restaurant for 3 years as a manager.
You were or he was?
He was a owner, and I managed his store as a manager.
Okay, and what business have you been in?
And that was a Subway restaurant.
Okay.
You came from Nepal, right?
Yeah.
How many years ago?
I was here in 2012.
Yeah. A lot of Nepalese people are moving into this area. I don't know.
So if I'm understanding him correctly, he's had worked in a restaurant?
Subway restaurant. Yeah, I work in
Subway,
Subway
but-
restaurant
Subway, okay.
as a manager.
Okay. And you understand this is different?
Yeah, this.
And there are a lot more responsibilities?
Yeah, no.
Okay. And you're making quite an investment in it, so you want to be very careful of that, because we have the authority to take it away if you're not. You understand that?
Yeah. That's why I'm planning to move to the city. So.
Okay. Commissioners have questions?
I'm just concerned about the day-to-day operation. You have no experience in liquor,
No, I don't have.
but someone who's going to be working there, who is that person who has the experience, who's going to somewhat lead the way and train you if you are going to be a part of that operation?
I think that the current operator, Mr. Parmajit Singh, and his employees are going to stay on with him for about 3 years to get everybody, familiarize them with everybody, so they would stay with him.
They're going to be employees then?
Yeah.
Yes.
The only question I have is, with respect to this license, it's a BD7. Are you familiar with the issue of the packaged goods store and the tavern itself remaining open at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a particular issue for this agency. We tend to violate several BD7s on not keeping the tavern open while the packaged goods store is open. So just sort of warning you that that's something that the inspectors seem to focus in on. So
Thanks.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Kudensky?
Nothing further to submit.
All right. On the basis then of the materials contained in the application, the proffers from counsel, the testimony received, and the exhibits received, I vote to approve the transfer.
I concur.
I agree. Good luck.
Thank you.
Call the exhibits for the record. Licensee Exhibit Number 1, Alcohol Awareness Certification for Rupak Karki.
Okay. Mr. Page, the last case on the morning docket, the parties are represented by my law firm, so I'm going to recuse myself, and 3 other commissioners will hear the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the absence of Chairman Matriciani, Commissioner Aaron Greenfield will serve as the chair.
too.
I just want to sit closer to you.
No, not the way I am.
Oh, that's right, you're sick.
Daniel Beard and Jeffrey Stein and Elena Johnson, 803 SCLL LLC, trade name pending, 803 South Caroline Street. This is a Class B beer wine and liquor license, an application to transfer ownership, and a request for outdoor table service. Please come forward.
Good morning. If everyone who's going to testify would raise their right hands.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
Counsel, do you have a business card? I don't have your information.
I believe I do. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm sorry, I don't believe I do. I'll give you the information. Adam Baker with Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston on behalf of the applicant with offices here in Baltimore City at 7 St. Paul Street. Here on the transfer of a Class B at 803 South Caroline Street. Property used to be the Inn at the Black Olive, which was a hotel with a restaurant operation in the first floor. My client's in the process of redeveloping the property, same breakdown of uses in that there'll be a residential component on the upper floors, and then they want to maintain the restaurant operation on the first floor. We met last week with the Fells Point Residents Association, and I spoke last night with David March, the president, who said he's going to be, or had already sent a letter to the board supporting the requested transfer. I've got a copy if it hasn't made its way to the board's file.
We have it.
Okay,
Thank you. It'll
excellent.
be part of the record.
Excellent. If I may, I'm just going to call my first
Please,
witness. Dan? Can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Daniel Baird, 163 Friar Tuck Hill, Annapolis, Maryland, 21405.
Okay. And how long have you been a resident of the state of Maryland?
51 years.
Okay. And is the information contained in the liquor license application correct and accurate? to the
It
best of
is.
your- Okay. And are you familiar with the rules and regulations?
I am.
Okay. And you've read them, you understand the responsibility that comes with holding a liquor license?
I do.
Okay. And then, other than the license, which is the subject of this transfer request, are there any other existing licenses at this location?
There are not.
Okay. Just for the board's benefit, do you mind just briefly describing the proposed redevelopment of the property?
Yes, the original idea of the property was it was a hotel above a restaurant, and actually there's a restaurant on the upper floor as well that serves more of a group space. Because of the construction that went on around it, the Constellation did a lot of work around there. It was very invasive. It never really took off, the model, and we were friends with the prior owner and worked with him to take over the operation. We're converting the hotel use into an apartment use, and again, want to retain the restaurant on the first floor.
Okay. And as far as, I guess, the time frame goes, when do you anticipate that opening?
The construction should be done by the first of the year, and then there are use and occupancy permits, et cetera, that need to be gotten before we can actually occupy the space.
Okay. And generally speaking, given your involvement with the project and the due diligence that you've done, what do you anticipate the impact to the surrounding area being?
I think it will be the same as the original model. Very few people living there. There's 12 units in all, or 13 units in all. The use for the restaurant on the first floor is very similar to the operation that was there before, a health food type operation.
Okay.
So very little change.
Okay. You don't anticipate a negative impact to the community?
No, not at all.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any questions?
I assume the apartment use zoning is in compliance with the zoning code?
Correct.
It is.
Okay. And I did have a question for Mr. Baird. Interestingly enough, I didn't know that Bear Hills had a liquor license, which your previous owner.
It did.
And that's in, I assume, Baltimore County.
Yes, sir.
Any issues with that license
No,
while
sir.
you held it? Great. Okay.
Except we never used it. We think we probably sold 50 beers the whole time we had it.
Okay.
It was a good idea that didn't work. But it's still in play. And I'm not on that license anymore, by the way.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
Nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I may just call Elena Johnson. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Elena Johnson, 10802 Royal Muse Road, Cockeysville, Maryland, 21030.
Okay. And how long have you resided in the state of Maryland?
37 years.
Okay. And is the information contained in the liquor license application correct and accurate to the
Yes.
best of your knowledge? Okay. And you're familiar as well with the rules and regulations of the board?
Yes, I also have a certification already.
Okay. Elena, you're going to be operating the restaurant space, the first floor. Can you just briefly describe for the board the concept that you've envisioned?
Sure. It's a concept is an organic, plant-based restaurant. So going from coffee and light fare during the day to lunch and healthy fare for midday and dinner with some additional specials. We'll be very much using local seasonal produce whenever possible, and would like to complement that with alcoholic drinks that include, sort of fresh seasonal ingredients as well. So kind of high-end chef-inspired cocktails.
Okay. And what's your experience in the food and beverage industry?
Yeah, most of my career actually. So I started with Starbucks Corporation, worked for them as a retail store manager in Baltimore City for many years. And then also my family in Howard County has owned the Judge's Bench, which is a local pub on Main Street in Ellicott City for the last 10 years. And I've been working with them and helping manage that restaurant as well. So learning a lot about the sort of alcoholic beverage side of things from that component. And I also own my own catering business, which I've been operating as an LLC for 3 years. So this is the next step of that.
And what's the footprint of the catering business right now?
Baltimore Metro and DC Metro.
I have here a copy of the menu that you sent me. Is this the one that you had sent me?
Yeah, that's the concept. There'll be some small edits here and there.
Yeah, it's conceptual. Nothing is set in stone, but I'd like to just submit this as an exhibit for the board.
Will be received.
Thank you.
If you want to give copies to, yeah, you can give me two.
Okay, so you had said it's going to be kind of a plant-based menu, organic ingredients, handcrafted cocktails. Are there other establishments in Baltimore or in the area that have these types of offerings?
Really, no. There's 2 other plant-based restaurants in Baltimore City in total, and they don't have any way to serve alcohol, and they don't really have a lot of seating either. So we would be more of a full-service restaurant in that capacity, and a lot of people actually drive to DC or Howard County to find a similar style of restaurant. So I think we'll actually be able to capture a lot of the Baltimore residents here. Yeah.
And overall, what do you anticipate the impact to the general area being?
I think it'll be a benefit, certainly providing, healthful ingredients and also supporting local farmers and other providers. And certainly just something that is going to be seen, I think, as enhancing the neighborhood, along with the new, apartments and building and everything.
Absolutely. We've indicated on the application that you intend to continue the catering operation at this location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you envisioning offering kind of the menu of items that you would offer in the restaurant through the catering?
Yeah, we do, weddings and small events, so probably more to the dinner-style foods that are on the menu. We certainly have other things we can come up with, but yeah, the same type of food, plant-based, organic, and basically what we've been doing for the last 3 years.
Okay. I have no further questions.
The seating capacity of the restaurant, what is it?
I think max is 85, and we're not quite sure yet how we'll lay it out, so it will probably be in that range with some bar seats, probably about 80, I would expect.
And how do you see sort of the growth and development of Harbor East fitting into this?
Well, I sure hope it's going to be a benefit. I think we're kind of right on that line between, the real historic part of Fells Point and the newer developments, and of course Whole Foods is moving closer. So that's really kind of our target audience as far as people who are looking for healthful ingredients, Whole Foods, things of that nature. Not Whole Foods the store, but Whole Foods the food.
Commissioner Jones, any questions?
No question at all.
I must say, I enjoy a good bagel. I've never had it with tofu cashew cream cheese, which I'll have to check it out.
We have provided that as an ingredient to a few places to try out, and it's actually goes over very well with people who do like dairy, so it can go both ways, yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
And very briefly, Jeff Stein. Jeff, can you please just state your name and address for the record?
Jeffrey Stein, 1220 Bank Street, Unit 301, and that's Baltimore City, 21202.
Okay. And how long have you resided in Baltimore City?
11 years.
Okay. And same question in the state of Maryland?
60.
Okay. And then is the information contained in the application true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Okay, and you're familiar with the rules and regulations of the board?
Yes, I am.
And you understand the responsibility of the companies holding a liquor license in the city?
I do.
Okay. I have no further questions of Mr. Stein, and with that, unless the board has questions, that we would rest our case in chief.
Thank you, Councilor. The only question, Mr. Baker, the only question I have is, can you elaborate a little bit more about the community discussion that you had?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we met with the Fells Point Residents Association last week and gave a similar presentation, both about the redevelopment of the building as well as the restaurant concept, provided them with a copy of the menu, and Elena did a great job of describing her vision for the restaurant and the offerings that would be on the menu at the restaurant. And overall, if I do say so myself, I think it was very well received.
So we do have a letter here dated December 12th from the Fells Point Residents Association to Mr. Page, the Executive Secretary of the agency. It's from Mr. Martz, the President of the Fells Point Residents Association, has asked that this be read into the record and be made of the permanent file. So the applicants for the property presented their request for the transfer of this Class B license and requested outdoor table service, which we need to discuss, at the association's regular scheduled meeting, and the membership voted unanimously to support the request. With, specifically with the outdoor table service, can you comment on the plan?
Sure. There is, if you're familiar with the property, there is an elevated, I guess, porch area that's set back from the street, and it's shown on the floor plan which was submitted. The intention is to have tables out there, not necessarily on the sidewalk of the street, but more on this elevated porch area that's directly outside the restaurant.
If I could just add, the access to that porch is actually through the restaurant, so it's not accessible from the outside.
So just to give you a point of
Yeah.
reference, here are the stairs up to the building, and you would enter the restaurant through the building. I'm going backwards, I'm sorry, this way. And then here is the outside area, which is elevated, and there's I guess a
railing.
balcony.
And what are the number of tables or seats that will be out there?
Pretty small. I actually have to remeasure it. I think maybe we could fit 8 small tables, somewhere in that range.
And any specific hours that you will limit it?
I think that we would use it within the standard hours of operation for the restaurant. So when dinner service closes, that would be that. However, it could also be utilized as a place for people to step outside without having to leave the establishment and leave the resident building. But obviously, noise ordinance would be of the utmost importance with that.
And Ms. Johnson, you seem obviously very experienced in this, and I assume you will make sure that wait staff is tending to these things and making sure no one's getting drinks that they shouldn't.
We have as I mentioned, I work at the restaurant my family owns now, which is really more of a pub. There's food there certainly, but it's a Scotch, high-end Scotch and craft beer bar with an outdoor area as well that they just applied for a year ago. So I'm very familiar with how to address those things and frankly what some of the safety concerns and safety benefits can be for someone being able to bring their drink if they need to step outside, for instance, to smoke a cigarette. So in those ways, we're very familiar with it. And as I said, I have my alcohol certification already and will hold that continuously.
Terrific. Commissioner Jones, any questions?
Oh, I feel comfortable. You have done a great job in presenting your plan.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I echo Commissioner Jones' sentiment. Based upon the evidence before us then, I would vote to approve the transfer of this license.
I concur.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Calling the exhibits for the record. Exhibit number 1, letter of support for David Martz from the Fells Point Resident Association. Exhibit number 2, suggested menu for the establishment.
Mr. Chairman, the board is in recess until 1 p.m.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City. This is the afternoon violation docket. Today's Thursday, December 14th. When your case is called, you'll be asked to step up to the microphone. Please state your name. If you're going to be giving testimony, please be prepared to be sworn in. If you have an electronic device at this time, please silence it or shut it off. Mr. Acting Chair, may I please call well, there's a couple preliminary matters, if I may first.
Absolutely.
This is the case of Rakesh Patel, Rahi LLC, trading as Wine Underground, 4400 Evans Chapel Road. This is a violation of Rule 4.01A, sales to minor, and violation of Rule 3.02, cooperation. Mr. Chair, this matter has been postponed and will be rescheduled for a future date where all parties will be notified. The next case is James DePino Jr. and Michael Devitt, Pull the Trigger LLC, trading as Wayward Southern Bar and Kitchen, 1117 through 21 South Charles Street. This is a violation of Alcoholic Beverages Article 12-1604C3, 51% food receipts for Class B licenses in the 46th District, and a violation of Rule 4.16, illegal conduct. Mr. Chair, this matter has been postponed and will be scheduled for a future date where all parties will be notified. Calling the first matter on the afternoon docket, Frawning Galan, Euphoria Restaurant Nightclub LLC, trading as Euphoria Restaurant and Nightclub, 1301 South Ponca Street. There's a Class BD7 beer, wine, liquor license, violation of Rule 3.13B, small I, bottle service, and a violation of Rule 3.13C, bottle service.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Acting Chair Greenfield, Commissioner Jones, Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of the licensee in this matter. I received a text that he was running just a few minutes late. I do happen to have the second case. I'm representing the licensees there. I'd be happy to proceed with that case if that would help in the interest of time.
Yes, I would appreciate, in the interest of time, Mr. Akers, if we could call the second case.
Yes, sir. Not a problem.
He's just walking, he's just getting on the
Well,
elevator now.
That's okay. Let's call the second case.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Foster.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner.
Calling case Soon Se Shin and Son Hee Shin, H&S Incorporated, trading as Pepper's Lounge, 5440 Reisterstown Road. This is a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license. It's a violation of Rule 4.14A, live entertainment without authorization.
Good afternoon, everybody. If those who are planning to testify could raise their right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Now, this proceeding is being recorded, so when you speak, if you speak, we ask that you speak directly into the microphone. Mr. Fogelman?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of the licensees. We'll enter a plea of not responsible.
Not responsible, so you're denying the violation?
Thank you.
Okay.
Agent John Chrisomalis, Baltimore City Liquor Board. On or about October 20th, 2017, at approximately 11:20 p.m., I, Agent Chrisomalis, while on duty and working with a social task force consisting of members of the Baltimore City Fire Department, Fire Marshal's Office, Baltimore City Housing Authority, Housing Department, and Baltimore PD Vice Unit, visited the location known as Pepper's Liquors, located at 5440 Reisterstown Road in the city of Baltimore in the state of Maryland. Once we arrived at the location, we met with the manager, Mr. Daniel Kim. While we were conducting our inspections, it was observed that there was a DJ on the premises playing music from amplified speakers. The establishment's liquor license and use permit both prohibit live entertainment. Also, during the inspection, it was discovered that there was no hot water in the bathroom. The violations were explained to the manager, and we left the location without any further incident.
Agent Chrisomalis, thank you. Okay. Mr. Fogelman, do you have any questions for?
Yes, thank you very much, Inspector. Inspector, on that night, you left this inspection notice, isn't that right?
That's correct.
All right, and that's dated 10/20.
That's the same. It was the same night.
Yeah, 11/23.
That's correct.
You noted no violations.
That's
isn't
correct.
that right. Okay. I'm going to admit this into evidence at this time as Exhibit 1.
Will be received.
Thank you. And you never mentioned to the licensee or the person in charge that there was a live entertainment, that they had been violated for live entertainment. Isn't that right?
So So to explain why, to explain the inspection report and then also your question to me right now, is the housing authority is the one that originally pursued the live entertainment. So what happened is they sat with them, because it was part of the social task force, they sat with them and explained to them that their use permit does not allow for live entertainment on the premises. They did not issue a fine since we wrote the violation and we brought it in front of our board. So that is the reason why I added the charges after the fact.
All right. And you specifically allege that on that evening, there were speakers in the presence of the building, inside the building.
That's correct.
Okay. And these are, I believe your term was amplified speakers in your report?
That's correct.
All right. I'm no audio-visual expert, but what is your understanding of what an amplifier is and what a speaker is?
The music the DJ had a laptop and then he had a mixer. And typically with that mixer, you can amplify the sound to come out of the speakers.
Right, in the same way that you could amplify sound by turning up a jukebox, right?
That's correct.
Okay, or anything. And you're probably aware that, in fact, even in our cell phones, we have amplifiers, that without an amplifier, a speaker is worthless because you can't hear anything, right?
I'm in total agreement with
Okay,
you on that.
all right, so now, looking at Article 32 of the zoning code of Baltimore City, Section 1306, you'd agree with me that live entertainment means a musical act including karaoke, right?
That's correct.
A theatrical act including a play, review, or stand-up comedy, right?
That's correct.
A dance, right?
Correct.
A magic act, right?
Correct.
A disc jockey, right?
Correct.
Or a similar activity.
Correct.
All right. What led you to believe that the person standing to my right or any other person in the bar that night was acting as a disc jockey?
Well, typically, if there's a bartender or somebody in the establishment that is just changing music on an iPod or a laptop, that, to me, in my understanding of the law, is not a disc jockey. When you have a designated person specifically there in an isolated area, designated to play music only, in my interpretation, that's a disc jockey.
All right, but your interpretation, well, let me strike that. You understand Rule 4.14, which is, of course, the live entertainment without authorization rule that we're here for. And you would agree with me that 4.14B states that disc jockeys performing with amplified microphones and equipment and similar activities is prohibited.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you did not find the presence of any microphone on that night.
I don't believe I saw any microphones. That's correct.
All right, and equally important, you didn't see anyone dancing.
I actually did see someone dancing. However, again, unless there is a large dance floor designated and a lot of people dancing, I typically won't violate an establishment because one lady decided to stand up and start dancing.
Right.
So I did see people dancing, if that's your question.
I thought you said one person. How many people?
Two. It was two ladies.
Okay. And
but the live entertainment violation came from the designated person playing music in a designated area of the club.
Someone play. You call it a club. Obviously, it's trading as Pepper's Liquors. Could you describe the club for us?
Well, they're a BD7, so they're not a liquor store. So the Pepper's Liquors is really Pepper's Liquors and Lounge or bar.
But it's kind of ironic that you would refer to them as a club, isn't it? Since they were before this board 3 months ago,
Sorry, tavern.
not operating as a tavern.
I understand, but they are a tavern, so I can't refer to them as a liquor store because that's how they choose to operate. I mean, they're a tavern.
But a club might be the wrong word.
Club, tavern, perhaps, yes.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Agent Chris Mull, I have some questions. Commissioner Jones may as well. What did you actually observe? Did you actually observe a person playing music, and if so, by what measure? What did they use to play that music?
Sure. So once we arrived there, in the back portion, there was a individual that was staged like a DJ booth, and he had laptops up, he had mixing devices, and he had the amplifiers with speakers on each side playing music at that time.
One or two more questions of the inspector.
One second. Commissioner Jones, do you have any questions at this point?
Did you see this person perform any other duties other than playing music and controlling those devices that you so noted?
No, Commissioner.
Who is that person? Is it that person here now?
I couldn't tell if he was. I apologize.
But you did witness someone doing this.
That's correct, sir.
All right, and just a couple quick questions. Obviously, there's no legal prohibition against the possession of speakers, isn't that right?
I would assume no.
Okay, and in fact, you inspect hundreds of places. You're one of the more prodigious inspectors for the agency, right? You get out a lot, right?
I'm out a lot.
All right, and so you would agree with me that there are speakers in almost every bar in Baltimore, isn't that right?
I mean, I don't know if I could say that in every bar of Baltimore, but there are speakers in the majority of establishments in Baltimore.
And
correct?
even the speakers that aren't as obvious, there are speakers in the ceilings, like they have in room 215 here, right?
That's correct, and that's where we typically draw the line if there's a DJ or if it's speakers provided by the establishment. So if the speakers are brought in or if an individual is staging speakers for that evening, we at that point consider that live entertainment. If there's speakers in the walls, part of the fixture of the establishment, that's a little bit different.
All right, I thank you.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Crisomales.
Yes, my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Inspector. All right, at this time, I would like to move to dismiss the charge before my client, or before the board today. Rule 4.14B clearly states that live entertainment shall not be permitted unless live entertainment approval has been provided by this board and by the city zoning board. And then the second part of it, 414B, says examples of live entertainment include. It doesn't say examples of live entertainment include without limitation, or examples of live entertainment include but are not limited to. So by the legal reading of 4.14B, you have to pretty much assume that this is an exhaustive list, that if it's not on here, it's not live entertainment. And in that regard, disc jockeys has 5, 6 important words right after it. Unlike the zoning code, which just says disc jockeys as its own subsection, this rule says disc jockeys performing with amplified microphones and equipment. And I would also argue that and or are important. These are important words here. And in the conjunctive, it is effectively telling you that a disc jockey must have amplified microphones and equipment. And clearly, there's no microphone here. That's not disputed. The question is, what kind of speakers are acceptable and what aren't? And are any speakers unacceptable? That's really the further question under this definition. We don't have decibels. We don't have watts. I mean, I have a little guitar amp. I mean, these things come in 10 watt, 25 watt, 40 watt. So none of that's been defined. But it's clear here that there's not an amplified microphone and equipment present on the premises during this incident. And look, I've been on this side and the other side, and I know live entertainment when I see it. And this isn't it. This simply, if I see 25 people dancing, if I see, hey, it's your birthday, and et cetera, if I shout out to somebody's bachelorette party in the back of the room, we know what live entertainment is. This doesn't sound like live entertainment to me, and in fact, under the legal rules that I've cited, it isn't. So I'd ask that you take that into consideration. Thank you.
I appreciate the argument, and I'm following your argument. I will hold on the motion for now. I want to hear your client's testimony, and we can revisit that motion afterwards.
Great, thank you very much. I'll first call Daniel Kim. Mr. Kim? You've been sworn previously?
Yes.
All right, and you were present on the evening of October 20th, isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, where were you in location to the bar area?
I was ringing up customers in the bars, the liquor section.
All right. Is there usually music playing in the bar area?
There is, because customers who comes in the bar, they want music, you know. You don't want to go inside a bar without no music, you know. So but since the bar is like close to where we ring up customers, we try to keep the music low, because we're behind glass, so we can't barely hear customers anyway, so we keep.
So you don't want loud, you don't want the music too
Yeah,
loud?
no loud music.
Okay. And on this particular night, when you were behind the counter, was the music loud or even too loud, in your opinion?
Just I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. It's just moderate, yeah.
All right,
Just
so
regular.
nothing out of the ordinary on
Yeah,
that night?
correct, yeah.
Okay, and you received the violation, or the inspection report that I put into evidence that shows no violations
Correct,
noted.
I signed it, yeah.
All right, and did the inspector or anyone else tell you that you've been violated for having live entertainment?
When I signed the report, it says, I saw the violation sign, it says none.
Right, but did someone communicate to you verbally that you'd been violated for illegal live entertainment at that time?
I don't recall.
You don't recall?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know, do you have a DJ booth at your facility? A dedicated DJ booth?
I wouldn't say a dedicated DJ booth, but just like a plastic table. And we have a stereo right now. Yeah.
All right. And your employee, Mr. Rodney Blake, was behind the bar that night, isn't that right?
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Blake had music going on 2 speakers, isn't that right?
I don't know which speaker it was, but it just, you know, I was working in the liquor section.
All right. And you've been extremely cooperative with the Baltimore Police Department as of late, isn't that right?
Correct.
And in fact, you're cooperating in an investigation and are a witness in
Correct.
an investigation that, of some activities that took place up there.
Correct.
All right. And further, your bar has an excellent record of calling the Baltimore Police Department anytime you believe there's illegal activity occurring outside the premises, is that right?
Correct.
And you maintained a call log in that regard, showing, quite frankly, from October 17th until December 12th, the number of times and the time of day that you called the BPD. Isn't that right?
Correct.
All right, I'd just like to enter this as Exhibit 2. All right, I have no further questions for Mr. Kim.
Mr. Kim, if I could ask you a few questions. You referenced that it's a plastic table, but when Mr. Blake, if I got the name correct.
Rodney Blake.
Mr. Blake, okay. But it sounds like, based upon Mr. Chrysomalis' previous testimony, that it was staged or set aside. Can you describe that on that evening?
I mean, like, if you guys get a visual, it's just like, you know, those plastic folding, you know, where you fold it, is one of those, and just like a stereo with speakers. And that night, there was, like, equipment, but I don't know what kind of equipment were there. Yeah, but it's not like a booth, it's just like a table. Yeah.
Okay, was the music transmitted by speakers?
I don't know. It's just, I don't pay attention to the bar area. I mean, Rodney is the bartender, so I was just, it was a weekend, so it was a busy schedule, so I couldn't really, you know,
Okay,
tell you.
I'll ask Mr. Blake then.
One more question to Mr. Kim.
Let me see if Commissioner
Oh, I'm sorry,
Jones
I'm
has
sorry.
While at the cashier, while performing that duty, did you hear anything unusual in reference to sound?
No, nothing unusual.
So
Just
in your opinion, the music was at the level you normally have the music?
Correct, yeah. I mean, there was only, I would say, like, not even more than 5 customers that night, not even. And there were 3 people, there's maybe 4 people at the bar. It's, you know.
How many bartenders or how many bar assistants?
One bartender, which is Ronnie. Yeah.
Rodney?
Yeah.
So was Rodney also playing the music that day?
He was playing music, but he was working as a bartender. I don't know what music he was playing. I mean, music was playing, but I don't know who was playing it.
Whose responsibility it is to monitor who's drinking what while they're inside the bar? If a person had too much to drink,
Correct.
would that be your responsibility along with Mr. Blake, or would it be Mr. Blake's responsibility all by himself?
If you're talking for the bar section?
Yes.
Well, it will be his responsibility then, because he's immediately inside, you know, he's the bartender. So if there's there's no history of troubled customers, but if there was something like that, he will report to me. And we would take further actions, depending on, you know, how extreme it is.
Have you had the occasion ever to tell Mr. Blake to tone the music down?
No.
Did you have a need for all that musical equipment that he had on that plastic table? You said a speaker, a turntable?
Like I said, I don't know what was on that table. I'm not, you know.
You did mention some things you saw. You identified
Yeah,
some of the things in your testimony.
the stereo and the speaker that belongs to us, that's what I remember. But I don't know, like the amplifiers, I don't know where that came from.
Following up on Commissioner Jones's question, you had indicated that you can hear music coming from the bar area when you're working at the cash register, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. And on that particular night, Commissioner Jones asked you, did you hear anything different or unusual? And you said no.
No.
And certainly you would consider somebody on the microphone to be unusual, right?
Correct.
And you would have noticed if somebody was performing on a microphone, right?
Correct.
And when you mention the equipment on the table that you've described, we're not talking about a turntable. We're talking about a CD player, right?
Yes, a CD player,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions. Oh, although, if I may, one more. Mr. Kim, are you aware of any kind of live entertainment whatsoever at Pepper's Liquors on this date or any other?
No.
Okay.
Just, no.
Okay, thank you.
I think I have one final question for Mr. Kim. What was the idea behind having Mr. Blake play music?
I mean, it's a bar, you know. People come inside the bar to hear music, have a beer, you know. So it's music is required, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the music is, which speaker coming from. I just know when you go inside a bar, there's music playing, a TV playing, you know, that bar atmosphere.
All right, you're going to hear it from the next witness, but if you want me to develop a line of questioning for him specifically around these speakers, I'm happy to.
No, I don't think that's necessary
Okay.
at this point,
All right.
but I think we need to hear from Mr. Blake.
Sure. All right, thank you, Mr. Kim. Mr. Blake, please step up. Thinking of a Detroit Lions quarterback, but that's Rodney Peete, so he's got a good name. All right, Mr. Blake, you are the bartender, or were the bartender on October 20th, 2017 at the premises, were you not?
Yes.
All right. You routinely play music at the bar, isn't that right?
Yeah, we have, excuse me, what Mr. King is trying to explain to you is like this, we had two little speakers, and that's what he saw, sits in the corner, and that's where we play the music from. The other equipment, they actually has no idea with. I have a friend, and that's exactly what happened. He said he wanted to sold it to me because he was criticizing what they have in the club and in the lounge, and I said, okay, I'll take a look at it. He brought it in, and he did set it up. Okay, he was not playing it. He was just there, and like he explained, there was only a couple of people, and no one was dancing. The music was not there for dancing. It was just for listening. In about an hour or so, the officers came in, and the first question the lady asked me one question, and I asked her one question. When she walked in, they said, "Good evening, you're the bartender?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Is the music okay?" And she said, "Yeah, I can hear." And it stays right there throughout the whole investigation. It was there. The guy bought the equipment to sell it to me, and I said, "I can't buy it if I don't hear it." And he brought it in, and he hooked up. He had 4 speakers, 2 to the sides. One side was not playing. It was just this side, because I know that they have to hear up front to, for the transaction. And when there was a female officer came in. The guy get up and walk, and he was stand like, if this is like the music, he was like on the side like this. And the officer said to him, the officer was a black lady. She came with a camera in her hand, and she said to the guy, he said, act like you're DJing. So, and the guy put the headphone on. There was no mic at all. He stand there and put the headphone on, act like he was DJing, and the lady took a picture. And that was it. There was no DJ.
All right, and you indicated that he set up he basically set up two speakers to the CD player, so you could hear them.
Yes.
That's what he did.
Right.
Okay, and again, how would one do mixing with a CD? If you've testified that an officer said, "Be a DJ for me," then how would you even do that with CDs?
It's kind of hard.
Okay, I mean, is it impossible maybe to?
Yeah, because you just put it in and you just play.
Right. Now, you said it was a customer who put on headphones and stood behind or stood next to this table, right?
And actually, like I said, he wasn't there. He was just like the officers, like looking at what the equipment is. And the officer asked him, say, hey, act like you're recording or act like you're DJing, because I was standing right there. And he put the headphone on his head, and then the officer took the picture. And
All right, but you have never were hired or paid to be a DJ at Pepper's Liquors, isn't that right?
no, I am here just to serve liquor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Any question? Do you have, Commissioner?
The speaker that the person was trying to sell you, they had an amplified speaker?
It's not amplifier. Amplifier speaker, as I understand, do have an amp built into it. I've seen them. There's no amps connected to it.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Blake.
Do you have anything else?
Real quick, thank you. So I, again, not really fully understanding differences between speakers and amplifiers, things like this. I did go online and try to figure out what it all means. I went to a website called howstuffworks.com, and they said, what's the difference between a speaker and an amplifier? And somebody wrote back, and I'll put this in evidence, the speaker is where the sound comes from. The amplifier is where the sound comes from. Speakers are those things that make sound. The amplifier is what delivers sound to the speakers. Amps are usually radios, and speakers are what you plug into the amp or receiver to hear the sound. I don't know if that helps. So I think all speakers are amplified speakers technically. So I think that's a rule that could be problematic because literally a clock radio could fall under that definition, and we all have that. And as I mentioned, you have an amp in your cell phone. I have also something from another website, electronics.com, that says when you play a signal back on your stereo, the amplifier sends it to the speaker, which reinterprets it into physical vibrations. Good speakers are optimized to produce extremely accurate fluctuations in air pressure. And then it says that a speaker is the final translation machine, whereas the radio or a microphone would be the input. The speaker is the final part of it. The amplifier gives it enough electricity to be heard by the speaker. I'm happy to introduce those into evidence. I don't think they're treatises, but I think they might clarify that amp and speaker discussion.
So received. I do have one final question. Who actually owns the equipment now?
It's his. He took it back. His name was
I don't need to. It's okay. We don't need to know the name. So was it on loan to you and the company, and you into the bar?
No, it's just for testing. 'Cause I told him I would buy it because I could use it, but I couldn't buy it unless I hear it. So that's the only reason why he bought it.
Well, but I think the chairman wants to know, did you buy it? And is it at the Pepper's Liquors today?
No, it's not there. He took it back. He wants too much for it.
Mr. Blake.
Yes, sir.
Maybe you and the establishment is one of the most unlucky persons in the world because your timing may have been very bad. Musical equipment came into your establishment. Someone tried to sell it to you, and you say, I must hear it first before I can decide on whether I'm going to buy it or not. And at that time, lo and behold, the inspector came in. Is it possible that the inspector heard the sound coming from that device, and it was a tad bit loud, and that's the reason why they approached you about the sounding device?
Well, it did, actually, it did not, is it the officer?
The inspector, yes.
No, he did not approach me anything about sound. No one, actually, at night, no one says anything about sound, really. It's the
But did
only
you see
thing.
him in the establishment on the night of the inspection?
The officer? Yes, I did saw the officer.
Okay.
Just a couple of quick comments. No further questions of Mr. Blake. Note in the report, and then the report that Inspector Chrysomalis read to the board in evidence, that it was Social Club Task Force night. So this was not like a 311 complaint or neighbors petitioning, constant loud noise coming from the establishment. This was Social Club Task Force. So they were headed there no matter what, and that's what they found. I want to make it clear, Commissioner Jones, that there is no law that prohibits the possession of audio equipment in a bar. It's not contraband. It's certainly not akin to drugs or something like that. So if I happen to have a microphone and I'm a customer and it's sitting on the bar next to me, that's not enough to sustain a charge. And I would argue that having speakers that are a little bit larger than you might expect is also not a violation here. Even if he had kept the speakers, I would, if they call me up and say, can we keep these speakers? I would probably say, based on the rules in front of us, yes, you can. Don't you dare get on a microphone. But yes, you already have a stereo with 2 speakers that are pretty nice. These are a little nicer. And that's, again, maybe that's a health department question, is what speaker, is there a decibel level or a wattage level where we draw the line? There is no such guide for you, unfortunately.
Mr. Fogelman, if I implied that having the equipment there was a violation, that wasn't my intent.
I'm sorry.
I thought I added to that the sound coming from it. This happened to be coming from it when he walked in and he heard the sound. That's the point I was trying to deliver to everyone. So if I didn't do that clearly, that was my intent, to do that clearly.
Thank you.
Not possession.
Right. So I'd renew my motion. This is an odd case. It just, to me, it doesn't stand up. It's strange that this existed, and it was probably the first time they'd been into Pepper's Liquors and seen a new set of speakers. Pepper's Liquors, like I said, ironically, was before the board for not operating as a tavern and having customers having a good time on a Saturday night. Now they are, and we don't think that they violated the law in doing that. So we'd ask you to take that into consideration. Furthermore, just want to draw some attention to a letter written by Miss Minerva Eaton 2 months ago when this bar appeared before the board. She was contacted by Mr. Kim. She could not be here today. She also said she had never heard anything about live entertainment at Pepper's Liquors. That's just not part of the bill there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fogelman. With respect to your motion, I'm going to deny your motion to dismiss. Appreciate the argument. And on the merits, I understand, as I said, I understand the argument. But what I heard from Mr. Kim is that they recognized that they needed some music, some entertainment, I'm not quoting him, for the customers. That was his testimony. And so that, to me, ought to have sparked, well, do I need live entertainment authority, permission to do music? I understand, based upon the testimony in front of us, that this was seen as sort of a one-off, that you were testing equipment. With respect to your argument about DJs and microphone and amplified speakers, I think it's a fair argument. However, that rule goes on to say, comma, and similar activities. And so I do find that there was a violation of 4.14A based upon the evidence in front of us. I will also say that Peppers has come in front of us one time previously, and yes, they are good corporate citizens. Ms. Eaton has testified, and we very much appreciate that. But on the violation, I do find a violation based upon based upon the evidence that's before us. Commissioner Jones?
I concur with you. The inspector identified what he saw at the location. He did say he heard the sound coming from the equipment, and he said that the sound was amplified. So I have no other choice but to concur with you.
Right, and the speakers, amplified or not, I think fall into the similar activities section of the rule. And so for those reasons, we do find a violation. Would you care to make any arguments?
No, I feel like I've kind of done it throughout the case. They're pretty good operators in the neighborhood. They're very active with the community association. They aren't running a nightclub, and this is just a situation where really they didn't understand that it would even rise to the level of being a violation. So I'd ask that you consider some mercy with regard to this. I don't think it's not operating as a BD7. It's not a public general health, safety, welfare kind of issue. Really, it's simply a matter of a choice of speakers that maybe crossed a line.
No, and I appreciate the argument, and I do, based upon the evidence that's been in front of us, I do agree that they're good corporate partners, as I said earlier. I will find a violation, as found a violation in terms of the fine, I'll impose a fine of $150. Commissioner Jones?
We don't have any records indicating that anyone has ever complained about the noise coming from this establishment. And based on that, I could lean towards that $125 fine plus the $125 fee.
So I said 150, you want to do 125?
No, just 150. I'm sorry.
Plus the administrative fee?
Yeah, plus the administrative.
So $150 fine.
Thank you.
Vogelman did a good job.
He did.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
I'd like to call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit Number 1, Investigation Report, entered by Agent John Chrysomalis. Exhibit Number 2, Police Report by Detective Greenhill. Licensees Exhibit, Exhibit Number 1, Inspection Report by Agent Chrysomalis. Exhibit Number 2, a call log from the licensee. Exhibit Number 3, Internet research regarding speakers and amplifiers. Exhibit Number 4, a letter from Ms. Minerva Eaton. Exhibit Number 5, receipt certification for tobacco sales enforcement.
Thank you very much. Right?
Good job.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, may I recall the first case?
Yes, please.
Recalling Frawling Galan, Euphoria Restaurant and Nightclub LLC, trading as Euphoria Restaurant and Nightclub, 1301 South Ponca Street. There's a Class BD7 beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 3.13B, small double I, bottle service, October 14th, 2017, and a violation of Rule 3.13C, bottle service, October 14th, 2017.
Great. Mr. Glahn, if you could, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
If you could raise your right hand, everybody who's testifying, and
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Stephen W. Fogelman, denial of responsibility.
Okay. Chief Inspector Fossler or Agent Chrysomalis, would you care to testify to what you witnessed?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Chief Inspector Mark Fosler, Baltimore City Liquor Board. On Friday night, October 13, 2017, Liquor Board personnel, Agent Christomalis and Chief Fosler were conducting joint operations with the Vice Unit, Detective Greenhill, the Fire Department, Lieutenant Dawson, Fire Inspector Highline. During the evening, we were contacted to investigate Club Euphoria at 1301 Ponca Street. We arrived at the location on October 14, 2017 at approximately 12:55 a.m. Upon our arrival, we observed approximately 75 individuals outside milling around the area. We entered the establishment. It appeared to be crowded and very crowded inside. The fire department personnel began to investigate capacity and other issues. During the time we were inside, I observed patrons walking around inside the establishment carrying 5th/750 milliliter bottles of liquor, which included cognac, Ciroc, and champagne. I observed male and female patrons carrying and drinking directly from the liquor bottles. The bottles were not at a table but carried openly throughout the club by patrons who were observed regularly taking slugs of liquor from the bottles. I pointed out this activity to Agent Christomalis to confirm my observations. At last call, Lieutenant Dawson asked me to conduct an exit count at one set of the doors. While I was conducting that count, I observed a patron attempt to exit the establishment with a bottle of Ciroc that was approximately 20% full. Security informed him he could not exit with the alcohol. So the patron stepped back and chugged the remaining liquor from the bottle before exiting the club. We departed the location without further incident at approximately 2:15 a.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. I have no questions.
Mr. Christomalis, do you have anything further to add? Okay.
No questions of Mr. Christomalis either.
Any questions? Okay. Would you like to?
Yes, I'd like to move to dismiss one of these two charges. If you see, this is broken into two parts. The first charge is 3.13B2. The second charge is 3.13C. I'm not arguing about 3.13C. The chief clearly good eyes, and he said he saw somebody drinking straight out of the bottle. I'm more interested in what 3.13B2 says, and it's been spelled out, B2, not just 3.13 generally. B2 says, the licensee provides such service only to patrons who are seated at a reserved table, dedicated bar, or other cordoned-off area designated for bottle service. Now, the service that we're talking about here is bottle service, which is defined at 3.13A, means the sale of a bottle to a party of 3 or more individuals for the purpose of on-premise consumption at the licensed premises. And so there's no testimony that the club went and sold a bottle of Ciroc to somebody on the dance floor. There's no testimony that wait staff went and sold a bottle to a guy who was in line trying to exit the club. According to the records, any sales were done in fact, a provided cordoned-off area in accordance with the law. So I think that perhaps the intent of charging with 3.13B2 was because people were outside of that cordoned-off area drinking. I think that would be the intent of why this charge is here. However, if you look at 3.13B2, it simply says service has to be made, not consumption, but service has to be made in that cordoned-off area. And there's no evidence on this side, and their case is effectively concluded, that there was a service of that alcohol anywhere other than in that cordoned-off area. The remaining problem here is consumption outside of that cordoned-off area, and I believe that is properly addressed in 3.13C, where they're drinking directly from the bottle. But the bar's duty is to serve the bottle, and it doesn't say, certainly not in 3.13B2, it doesn't say that the patron can't leave that cordoned off area with a bottle, and it doesn't say that the personnel have to make sure he doesn't take that bottle out to the dance floor. Not 3.13B2, and that is what he is charged with. So I'd ask you to consider that.
So I want to tease this argument out.
Sure, sure.
So your argument is that in this particular case, as an example, that a patron was served in the cordoned off area, and that patron then took the bottle away from that cordoned off area, possibly, and consumed it. And because of that, with respect to 3.13B2, it doesn't apply. Is that what?
Right, because 3.13B2 simply requires the licensee to provide the bottle to patrons who are seated at a reserved table, dedicated bar, or other cordoned off area designated for bottle service, which they were. They were served those bottles. So let's assume that people were walking off. Okay, let's just for the sake of argument, let's assume that everybody buys a bottle in this cordoned off area and finds their way out on the dance floor chugging Ciroc. For the sake of argument, let's assume that. In that case, the licensee would most definitely be guilty of 3.13B5, which requires the licensee to assign personnel to the area designated for bottle service to maintain proper control of the area, which it could be argued was not if people are slipping out to the dance floor. They were not charged with that. They were charged with 3.13B2, which simply requires the licensee to provide the bottle in that area.
Now, however, we're using this fact pattern that I teased out here.
Sure.
Under the assumption that it was served in the cordoned off area. We don't know if it was or if it wasn't, but based on the testimony, it's clear that it was outside the area.
Consumption was outside the area, right.
Service could have been, service of a bottle, couldn't it have been outside of the general area?
Obviously, everything's possible, but there was no testimony that that's what occurred, and my clients will have a chance to testify about that at some point, regardless of this motion.
So I'm going to dismiss the motion, and we'll hear from.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Froing-Galan.
Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, Mr. Galan, you're the licensee at 1301 South Ponca Street, or 1301 Ponca?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have a cordoned off VIP section that allows for bottle service?
Yes,
Okay.
completely roped off.
All right. Tell me what, if any, security protocols you have?
Yes, we've added more protocol after this incident. You know, we realize, you know, it's a gesture that shouldn't be seen at a club by any inspector and for the well-being of any patrons that I have at my club.
And in fact, you have been working on security independently of this issue.
Yes.
Since the late fall, isn't that right? And you've met with local stakeholders and delegates and state senator talking about improving your security, isn't that right? All right, before we get on to what you're doing now in the VIP section, could we address what we were talking about here? Is your staff authorized to sell bottles anywhere other than in that cordoned off area?
No, the section is cornered off actually where you can't. They actually have to come out from a certain VIP area in order to get the bottles. So where bottles come out of is a designated area that has nothing to do with the dance floor.
Okay, and have you ever witnessed an employee selling or offering for sale a full bottle of alcohol to anyone in the club other than in the VIP section?
No, sir.
All right, so to the best of your knowledge, has that ever occurred?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have any idea how one or more people got out of the VIP section, broke out of the VIP section with their bottle?
Well, that night we did have a Morgan State University event, and you know the club was pretty crowded. We did not receive any fire violations. I have no record of any violations from the fire department. They did come out, you know, and inspect, and you know, anytime as an owner, you have the fire department, you have the liquor board, you have an event going on. You know, it's a lot to handle all at once, And security is also responding to fire personnel, what's your count, what's going on. Certain people are moved from certain stations when we have so many inspectors on site. The vice unit wants to talk to somebody, fire inspector wants to talk to somebody. My security is designated when we have a person of interest in the club, whether it's an inspector of any kind, you have to respond to that inspector. You can't just stay at your station like they're not standing there.
Going forward, what are you doing?
Well, we have a whole list of things here.
So received.
So there's a designated waitress per table in the areas. There's also designated security in the area. And there's absolutely no drinking from the bottle. We are working on getting labels. They get here before Friday. So we have labels that are going on the actual bottle service equipment that we use. And we also have I would say a spiel that we give to every customer before we serve them.
And what is that?
It's basically the rules. There's no drinking from the bottles. You're not allowed to serve yourself. And if you need anything else, please just let us know. If you're found drinking from the bottle at any time, you'll be removed from this club.
Thank you.
So it's not something 10 minutes long, but it's at least 4 or 5 quotes that we have to tell each customer before we serve them. Because some people just don't know. Some people pay a certain amount for a bottle, they feel like they can do whatever they want with it.
And in fact, you're aware of laws in other or bottle service in other cities, isn't that right?
Yes.
And they all differ a little bit, don't they?
Baltimore is very strict on all laws.
And in fact, there is no prohibition, as far as you know, against drinking out of the bottle in New York, for example, or Washington.
No, sir.
And people who go to clubs, they go to clubs all over the region, isn't that right?
You have something as close as DC,
Right.
But
But again, you're going to be educating your customers on the bottle and in person when they order a bottle.
customers and personnel.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to ask Chief Inspector Fossler a question. Your report states that you observed patrons walking about inside the establishment carrying bottles of liquor, male and female, were not at a table but carried openly throughout the club. Okay, so do you know could you tell the source of where the patrons got those bottles?
Commissioner Greenfield, I do not know. I just observed the patrons after the fact.
But it's your experience, having served as chief inspector, that it's not appropriate for patrons in any establishment to be walking around with bottles.
And that was the reason for the violation.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner?
Young man,
Yes, sir.
these new rules for your VIP section.
They're not new rules. They're more,
Well, that's
basically
what it
written
says-
down to be
that's
more
what it says
respectful.
here.
Just reading what you wrote.
I'm thinking that these things should have been in place, and they should not have been new. They should have been existed. I mean, you have an establishment. You know what the guidelines are. I'm quite sure somebody gave you a printout of what the guidelines are. So, to me, these things should have been practiced prior to us coming in there. So, that's a comment. It wasn't a question. Comment.
Yes, sir.
If I may ask one or two questions of the chief, since you
Sure.
brought him in here. Chief, you've been to that club a couple of times, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you've seen the cordoned off VIP section at some point
Yes, sir.
during your visits there? All right, and as far as you can tell during your visits to this establishment, you've never seen anybody buying a bottle straight from a bartender while the customer's standing on the dance floor or any other place?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Question. Thank you. The location you buy the bottle from, tell me, how does a person gets from that location to the roped off area? Or do you deliver, you explain that process to me.
Well, basically, let's imagine this is.
And can that person been walking from that location back to the roped off area? Do you come into a public area like the dance floor or some other area?
Okay. When you enter the club, we have a roped off area. That's basically designated for tables. You come in, you get your section. The waitress, this is basically, let's say the bar is from here on. Our roped off area starts with a section of the bar. So basically, from the entrance of the bar, it's blocked off for customers. That's the entryway for the waitress. Because if not, you get a whole bunch of people blocking the entryway to the waitress. So we block that off. The waitress goes, gets the order from the customer, explains the rules, explains the formality of things to be done. Busboy gets the ice while the waitress gets the order. Waitress gets the order, she goes behind the bar. There's a designated person that handles only bottle service. It's at the end of the bar in the corner. She gets both bottles, brings both bottles out, serves the table, and asks them if they need anything else. She places the bottle in the ice bin, and then she removes herself.
Is it possible that someone can purchase a bottle and not go into the rope area?
No, sir.
Is there anything further?
Just basically want to state that, there's an economic incentive for this club to make sure that that customers aren't drinking on the dance floor. I mean, you're getting a bill at the end of the night for the cost of a bottle. A server is going to expect a little bit higher tip because she's going to do some work for you. She's going to pour the drink. She may bring ice. She may bring limes or something to that effect. So it doesn't help their business model if people are drinking straight out of the bottle and taking the bottle off to the dance floor. It's something that they will make sure doesn't happen again. All of that having been said, and all that Mr. Galan and his honesty has stated here would have had him in violation of 3.135, B5, which is saying that the personnel have to control that area, and controlling that area means not letting people escape with a bottle. Obviously, there was a failure here. But once again, 3.13B2 simply says that service has to be made in that cordoned off area. And by service and consumption are obviously two different things. So I would, once again, ask that you find my client not guilty of the 3.13B2 charge, and he obviously concedes to the 3.13C charge on prohibitions on drinking from the bottle.
Okay, so just to clear the record, you were admitting to the violation of 3.13C.
Correct, and I would have done that, but at the start.
So I find a violation of 3.13C, and we'll get to the other issue. Let me comment on the other one. I understand your argument, yet again, Mr. Fogelman, and so I'm going to find a violation of 3.13B2. I think that there are, the language of the rule is the licensee may offer bottle service to a patron if provides such service only to patrons who are seated at a reserved table, et cetera, or cordoned off area. Somehow, this or these patrons got these bottles outside or inside. We're not clear, but from what we know is that they're milling about outside of the cordoned off area. Service was provided in some form, and I suspect, based upon the testimony and the record, that service was provided and probably a patron relocated with the bottle. So I'm going to find a violation of 3.13B2.
I concur, because if the licensee is the only person selling these bottles, I find it hard to understand how someone can go straight to the bar, purchase a bottle, come back to a public area with it in their hand, and be able to do whatever they do with it. You told me that it's impossible because they can't buy it from you and come out to a public area. They have to be in a roped area. So, based on your testimony, I concluded that you sold the bottles in the rope area because that's where they're supposed to be, and somebody walked from that rope area to some other area. So I find you guilty based on your testimony.
Right, and there is a control issue here, an enforcement of staff issue, all the things that you have, you've addressed. Okay, so in terms of a fine, would you like to?
Yes, briefly. This is a very large capacity establishment. I don't want to diminish the importance of any violation out there. And at the same time, this happened, and they are addressing greater security issues. That doesn't mean that you can let some of the other rules slide when you're putting your whole team on other security issues. But going forward, it's been a learning experience for Mr. Galan. And again, it's not enough to just get people in and out of your club and not have incidents. It is also some of these very technical details. I don't expect this to ever happen again. He understands that it is a violation, period. I do want to say, though, and this has been something that both sides of this board, with the rules varying from almost town to town and county to county on these things. And I'm not I don't go to a lot of nightclubs, so I've never bought a bottle of liquor. I take that back. One-Eyed Mike's has the Grand Marnier Club. It's at 700 South Bond Street. And I have a bottle there, and I buy it. And they take it down, and they put it in front of you, and they say, we have to pour it for you. And it's hard because sometimes the bartender's on the other side, and you think, oh, it's so easy, but that'd be a violation. And so they don't do that. Sure. So, it's one of those rules that they try their best to comply. And with this learning experience, I don't see them ever having any confusion about this rule again. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fogelman. Mr. Galan, I want to just ask you a couple questions as we try and determine what the imposition of the fine will be. You were before this board a little over a year ago on a general welfare issue, if I'm accurate, yes. And can you speak to the precautions, the efforts you've taken since that time to ensure that you're addressing issues related to capacity, parking, safety, how you're working with city agencies, et cetera? Please.
Well, we work with all our city agents. When inspectors arrive on the site, they get a response directly from me or directly from security, which calls for me. We have off-duty police present, so we don't have to use from our police department. That's been implied now for quite a couple months. The parking, we have available public parking more than enough. We're the only business open on that block besides Royal Farms. But Royal Farms has 6-7 parking lots, which is in rotation of their own customers. Nobody really parks on the street to go to Royal Farms. It's very rare. And all businesses are closed on that whole Ponca block, which is basically, I would say probably 4 or 5 city blocks all put together. It's a really long block from Old Donald to Boston. Security measures, capacity measures, we've really tightened up on capacity. We haven't had any violations on capacity as of that day. Everything I can possibly do, I've done. I've met with city councilmen, I met with my senator, my delegates, just to discuss, just to introduce ourselves to basically the community and the customers.
Additionally, Mr. Galan, and I was present with him, met with the mayor, Southeastern District Major Kleindienst, and they specifically asked him to provide more uniformed off-duty officers at there are these events called day parties, and I believe you have them twice a month. Is that right?
I have them once a month in the summer.
Once a month in the summer. This meeting that we're talking about that we both attended was probably in August. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. He agreed at that time that he would utilize more uniformed off-duty police for these, specifically for these day party events. At that time, there was a day party event scheduled for about 2 weeks from the date of that meeting. He then contacted Southeastern District and tried to get uniformed officers to do security that night. But because they needed more time, quite simply put, they said, we can't do that in the 2 weeks. So he chose, in an effort to try to keep relations strong with the community, to cancel, I believe it was 2 day parties you had scheduled for Labor Day weekend, which cost him many thousands of dollars. But we felt that it was appropriate, given trying to be responsive to the police and to other local agencies, that if he were to have something, quite frankly, without that extra security and something happen, it would be a big problem. So,
Well,
thank you.
For me, more than all, is just our city needs a nightlife. You know, you have to maintain that in a certain control, but you can't let your city die. Right now, everybody's going to DC, you know, they're driving 45 minutes to not spend money in our own city because we don't provide nightclubs. Right now, nightclubs are dead in the city. You know, my last violation was last year. You know, we have to stay in business. We have to innovate. We have to try to keep the city alive. If there's a Morgan State University, why are we celebrating it in DC? The university's here, and they do their party in DC. Why? Because either here they're getting shut down. You know, there's numerous issues with the clubs here where you're not allowed to perform. We have a big hookah situation in Baltimore City, DC, Philadelphia, New York, Cali. Everybody does charcoal hookah. Baltimore City, we have to use vape. If you're in a nightclub, you know, you have all these people doing everything. I just don't want my city to die because I do a lot of business here, you know, and I own a huge nightclub here. But at the same time, you know, I just feel like some laws here are so stringent that customers don't even want to stay in the city anymore.
Thank you.
What do you think the right avenue for sustaining a night environment here? You think that the patrons, the owners, should be able to do what they want, or do you think that? Well, let me finish. Or you think there should be some guidelines that we don't have? You think we need to develop new guidelines? And if you think that, laws, if you think that, what do you think would be the appropriate route to take to try to get that change? You say you met with your state senator, you met with local politicians. I mean, you seem to have the right avenue. I mean, why don't you utilize that? Coming before us complaining about it is not what the issue is here. The issue is whether or not you violated any of the laws that we have established, and that's where I think we should stick with.
Yeah, I don't think his microphone's working. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Amplify that mic.
I'm going to, Mr. Galan, I appreciate your comments, and I'm certain you know that with the privilege of a license come responsibilities. And so, but at the same time, I do appreciate the efforts you have made over the last year in working with city agencies and attempting to avoid similar patterns that you may have had in the past. So I do appreciate that. With that, I would suggest a fine of $500 plus the administrative fee.
Is that per violation or is that total?
Great question.
I can go either way.
Yeah, I will do 250 per violation, so 250 for Rule 3.13B2 and 250 for Rule 3.13C.
And this is the first case ever?
With respect to bottle service, it is. It's my understanding.
I think he deserves a break. We can learn from this. We all can learn from this. And I concur with you.
Great. Good luck.
I'd like to call the exhibits into the record. Board Exhibit Number 1, Investigation Report by Chief Fossler. Board Exhibit Number 2, Police Investigation Report by issued by Detective Greenhill. For licensee, Exhibit 1, New VIP Section Rules.
I think that concludes today's hearing, Mr. Page.
That
Does, Mr. Chairman, the board is in recess until December the 21st, 11 a.m.
Thank you.